Hey there and welcome back. Today's topic, the anatomy of a barbell. So some barbell basics, not a particularly exciting topic, however, a very useful one. Whether you're setting up your own home gym or you're going to train somewhere, it's real important to know what you're getting yourself into when you're purchasing that specific barbell or if you're going to be training on a specific barbell. Also, you don't want to be that experienced lifter who still refers to parts of the barbell like, oh, you know, when I put the plate up against the bigger round part here. Nobody wants to say that. So let's begin. Let's just start from the outside and move inward, and we'll cover a couple major parts of the barbell. First of all, out here you've got what's known as the sleeve of the barbell. So this is the loadable part of the barbell. You'll notice that on this bar down here, the sleeve is a little bit shorter. We'll come back to that here in a second. So this is the sleeve of the bar. Bars are usually going to have an end cap of some sort on the end. A discussion for another day, how to remove those for bar maintenance and stuff like that. But anyway, this is the sleeve of the barbell. Then you move into here and you get what's known as the collar of the barbell. And collars will come in all shapes and sizes. Well, the shape should be generally round, but you notice you have some different thicknesses. This one's pretty thin, this one's pretty thick. The one down here on the bottom is kind of medium. And so the collar of the bar, the goal of the collar, the job of the collar is to stop the plates from sliding inward. Just like the collars that you put outside of it, you slide other collars on. The job of those collars is to keep the bar from sliding outward. So the job of the collars, whether it's the ones that you put on or the collars of the barbell, is to keep the plates from sliding. Moving in from there, you have the shaft of the barbell, and this is where we're going to spend most of our discussion today. So the shaft of the barbell is where you're going to take your grip, where you're going to place your hands. So as long as we're talking about placing your hands on the bar, let's talk about the knurl. You've got the smooth part of the bar here. Some bars have smooth all the way across the middle, some don't, like these two bars right here. But the grippy part, because you don't want to just walk around calling it the grippy part, the part that provides some friction is known as the knurling. You'll notice this cross-hatch pattern, almost this kind of a diamond pattern if you look real close. And knurling is going to range from real aggressive, as in the case of this power bar right here, down to more of a mild. This is certainly not a mild one, but let's just say a moderate knurl. But the knurl is what gives you friction, what allows you to have a better grip on the bar, and of course you're also going to use chalk. So one thing to consider when you're looking for a barbell is, are you looking for a more aggressive knurling? So if you're a power lifter, you might be looking for something like this, like what this power bar has right here, which is a real aggressive, fairly sharp, sometimes we refer to it as a cheese grater knurling. Or you're looking for something more moderate. This is this bar up top here is the Ohio Power Bar from Rogue Fitness. This bar right here is the starting strength bar from Texas Power Bars. This is my current reigning all-around favorite bar in terms of just being able to do any of the lifts: squatting, pressing, benching, deadlifting, snatching, clean and jerking. If I could only have one bar, this would be the bar to have. And it has a fairly moderate knurl, so you can use it really for any of the lifts. However, if you want a more aggressive knurl, then you might be looking for something like the Ohio Power Bar or the Texas Power Bar, which is also manufactured by Texas Power Bars. I'm not making any money for recommending any of these. I'm just letting you know about these bars. So you've got anywhere from an aggressive knurl down to a moderate or a mild knurl. Let's talk about the score marks, the rings right here. This is known as, and if you've seen some of our other videos, we've talked about this before, so we'll keep this quick. This is known as a power bar. It has the powerlifting rings. These rings are 81 centimeters apart, or roughly 32 inches apart. They mark the widest point that your bench press grip can go in competition. For practical purposes, the score marks are where you're going to reference your grip from, whether it's your grip for your squat or your grip for your bench press. So these are your reference points. Now, if you move on to this bar down here, this is a women's Olympic lifting bar. So this is a 15 kilo, a 33 pound bar. These two bars up here are typically known as men's bars. So they're 20 kilo or 44 pound bars. We just refer to them as 45 pound bars. By the way, in powerlifting, strength lifting, general training, let me back up. In weightlifting, the sport of weightlifting, Olympic weightlifting, there is a men's bar and there is a women's bar. The men's bar is 20 kilograms, often has blue markings on it. We put blue tape on ours. So it's 20 kilograms, 44 pounds. We say 45 pounds. And then the women's bar is 15 kilos or 33 pounds. In strength lifting, the sport of strength lifting and the sport of powerlifting, and in just general strength training, there isn't really a men's and a women's bar. There is just usually the bar, which is the 20 kilo, 45 pound bar. But anyway, moving down to the women's bar, we'll just use that terminology. You'll notice that this ring down here is significantly wider than this one up here. So these are 81 centimeters, 32 inches apart. And these down here are 91 centimeters apart, or 36 inches apart. So just you want to be aware of what bar that you're training on, so if you go train somewhere else, your grip isn't thrown off by that. And then you'll notice here on the starting strength bar, and this is real common now. These have the kind of the hybrid marks, the dual marks. It's a hybrid bar of sorts. It has both of them. So you've got the power rings, and you've also got the weightlifting rings. Another thing to consider when speaking about knurl is, does the bar have a center knurl? Now, a center knurl is a real useful thing to have for squatting, specifically the back squat when the bar is sitting on your back. That being said, in the sport of weightlifting, the men's bar, for some reason the women's bar is not required to have this, but in the sport of weightlifting, the men's bar for competition is actually required to also have a center knurl. And in truth, it does actually help the bar grip to the front of you a little bit on your front squat, on your clean. That being said, for the Olympic lifts, if you're training the Olympic lifts on a regular basis, you may prefer to not have a center knurl. Some Olympic bars will have kind of a moderate knurl out here, and they'll have a more passive knurl on the inside, so you're not scraping yourself up on your upper chest, up by your shoulders, up by your clavicles up there. My recommendation would be for you, if you're getting one bar to train all the lifts, get a bar that has a center knurl. If you end up with a bar that doesn't have a center knurl, that's just smooth all the way across the middle, and you're still squatting with it, and I hope that you're squatting with it, then I'd recommend that you just put some athletic tape around the middle when it's time to squat. We lovingly refer to that as the redneck center knurl, and it works pretty well. Next, let's cover some of the dimensions of the bar itself. If you're talking about a men's bar, the dimension of a men's bar, IWF specs, International Weightlifting Specifications, are going to be 220 centimeters. So from end to end, 220 centimeters. So most men's bars are going to be right around that mark. Usually that's, not usually, but that's about just a little over 7 feet, 7.2 feet, something like that. It's often referred to as a 7-foot barbell. A women's bar, on the other hand, is 201 centimeters. So that's about just a little bit over 6.5 feet. Now, there's 20 kilo bars, there are 15 kilo bars or women's bars, there's also 10 kilogram bars, there's 5 kilogram bars. So you have even different dimensions, more different dimensions than the ones that I've described here. But these are, in general, the dimensions that we're going to be dealing with. Now, despite the fact that the bars will be of different lengths, so you've got a little bit over 7 feet here, and you've got about 6.5 feet right here, they're different in length. However, the difference from the inside of the collar to the other inside of the collar, so from collar to collar, is going to be the same. It's going to be 131 centimeters, 4 point something feet. I want to say 4.3 or something like that. I don't really remember. But that allows every single bar to be racked on your relatively standard squat rack, which is a real useful thing. So that's the length of the bar. Although I did forget one important length, and that is the distance between where the knurling starts. This is usually in the neighborhood of about 16.5 to 17 inches. And this is real useful because you're gonna very often base your bench press grip and your press grip on where the knurling actually starts as well. So anyway, enough with length. Let's move on to the diameter of the bar, the diameter of the shaft, as well as the diameter of the sleeve out here. Now, all three of these bars, but we'll just use this one as the example, they are commonly referred to as Olympic barbells or Olympic bars. They are, after all, used in the Olympics. What you don't want to get, what you don't want to train on, is something known as a standard bar. In a standard bar, you'll recognize it because the sleeve out here is significantly narrower. Instead of having a 2-inch diameter, this is roughly 2 inches, it's going to have a 1-inch diameter. So the plates that you're going to use, they have a much smaller diameter, a much smaller hole when you're sliding on the bar there. So don't get a standard bar, make sure you get an Olympic one. But let's talk a little bit more about this diameter. We loosely refer to it as a 2-inch diameter sleeve. It's actually 50 millimeters, which is about 1.97 inches. So that's your diameter here. Now, when we move to the shaft, we get a little bit more variation. Let's talk about a women's bar first. 15 kilograms women's bar, 33 pounds, is going to have a diameter of 25 millimeters. So in the hands, compared to these bars up here, it's going to feel a little bit smaller. Now, bars that are smaller than this, 10 kilograms, 5 kilograms, stuff like that, they will also typically have a diameter that's 25 millimeters. When you move into the 20 kilogram bars, however, you tend to have a little bit of a range. IWF specs, in other words, the sport of weightlifting, those barbells are going to be, if they're manufactured to those specifications, they're going to be 28 millimeters. And powerlifting bars are usually going to be 28 and a half, 29 millimeters, something like that in diameter. In other words, measuring from here to here straight through. Again, you remember diameter from your geometry days. What you don't want to get, you don't want to get a bar that's 32 millimeters. That's going to be, except in some rare cases, they do make some specialty squat bars out there, but except for rare cases like that, what you are buying when you get a real thick, and you'll notice the difference in your hands, it will feel significantly larger. But what you're getting when you train on or when you purchase a 32 millimeter bar is you're just getting a cheap piece of steel. So don't get a bar like that. You're typically, just in general, when you're shopping for a bar, you're going to shop for something that's in the neighborhood of 28 to 29 millimeters in diameter. That's going to serve real well for you for a general all-purpose bar. If you're looking for an Olympic weightlifting bar, somewhere around 28, 28 and a half works very well. And if you're looking more just for powerlifting or for general training, 28 and a half to 29 tends to work pretty well. This Ohio Power Bar here is 29 millimeters. The starting strength bar, this is one of the reasons I like it so much, is a 28 and a half millimeter bar. It doesn't seem like much of a difference, but you will feel the difference when you're comparing the two. The Ohio Power Bar is a solid bar. If we were purchasing more power bars now, which we're not really in the market to do, I'd probably get the Texas Power Bar from Texas Power Bars. Again, I'm not making any money from this. Same company that makes the starting strength bar right here. But the reason is, and I've trained on that bar as well, both of the knurlings on both of those bars, they're both power bars, so they're both going to have very aggressive knurls. But this is a 29 millimeter bar, and the Texas Power Bar is a 28 and a half millimeter bar. And where you will notice that specifically is on the deadlift. It's real nice to have a 28 and a half millimeter bar in your hands for heavy deadlifts, things that are a little bit smaller, easier to grab, and easier to grab means it's easier to hang on to when you've got a heavy deadlift. This is one of the reasons why the starting strength bar is so popular in our gym, because our three main all-purpose bars is the Ohio Power Bar, although this is not all-purpose in the sense of you don't want to Olympic lift with it. We have the B&R bar from Rogue, which is also 29 millimeters, but not as aggressive of a knurl. And then we have the starting strength bar, which the knurl on this is very similar to the B&R, but again, it's 28 and a half millimeters compared to 29. And that's one of the reasons why it's so popular, is it just feels really nice in the hands. So, short version is you're probably looking for a bar between 28 and 29 millimeters for diameter. The last thing that we'll cover is the idea of a bushing barbell versus a bearing barbell. For most people, for like 90%, 95% of the people out there, just a nice bushing barbell, a quality bushing barbell will serve you just fine. It will still rotate. This one right here is a bushing barbell. I haven't oiled it really recently, and it will still serve fine for the Olympic lifts. Bushing bars will still spin relatively well if you've got a quality bushing bar. Now, that being said, if you're an Olympic lifter and you're getting ready for a meet and you're going to be competing on a very nice Olympic bar, most likely that's going to be a bearing bar, and that thing's going to spin real well. So as you're getting closer to the meet, it might behoove you to train on a bar like that, because it's nice to get used to how well those things rotate. You might ask yourself, why is it important that a bar rotates? Well, it's important that a bar can rotate. Specifically, you want the shaft of the bar to rotate independently from the sleeve of the bar, because if you are rotating the shaft, let's say on a clean where you've got to turn that bar over, or on a snatch where you've got to turn the bar over, you want to be rotating only the shaft of the bar, and you don't want to also have to be rotating the hundreds of pounds, the hundreds of kilos that you've got sitting out there. So a bar that doesn't rotate well for an Olympic lifter is a good way to mess up a wrist, and at the very least a good way to miss a lift. Now, rotation is not as important in the slower lifts, such as, the deadlift, the squat, the bench, the press. So you need a bar that still rotates, it just doesn't have to rotate as well, which is why a bushing bar will serve just fine, and a quality bushing bar will rotate well enough for the training of the Olympic lifts as well. So price-wise, what's the difference between a bushing bar and a bearing bar? A bearing bar is going to be significantly more expensive. You're going to spend, $600 to $1,500, maybe $1,300, something like that, for a quality bearing bar, whereas you can get a very nice, good quality bushing bar to use for all of the lifts in the $300 range. Which brings me to my last point, and that is, a barbell is where you want to spend the money. You can get away with cheaper plates. You can even get away with a cheaper squat rack. However, make sure that the thing doesn't fall apart on you. You need to be safe. But the barbell, if you had to choose only one place to spend the money, a quality bar is where you want to spend the money. So Not a particularly exciting video, but I hope it was useful, and as always, we hope this helps you get stronger and live better.